I am from beyond. Listen, and all you desire will be yours. Welcome to Spider-Dan and the Secret Wars. Prepare for Prattle.
Unipod. Welcome to Prattle World. I am your host, the ever-amazing, ever-spectacular Spider-Dan, and in this podcast, I spotlight entertainment's best-kept secrets that a mainstream audience may find boring. And welcome to another Puny Pod, a short-form podcast where I revisit a specific film or comic all by myself. And welcome to the final edition of Robot Month. It's been an exciting month. I hope you've enjoyed all the wonderful guests and wonderful robotic resonant recordings that we've kept giving you week after week after week. And this is the final one, and I am rolling solo. I was supposed to do this with my longtime friend Dennis. So we're going to look at one of the best kind of crossover comics I've personally ever read. One of the absolute best. It's by two absolute comic book giants in the industry. It's by Frank Miller, the writer of Daredevil, Dark Knight Returns, Sin City, director of The Spirit. Yes, that as well. And as well as that on art, we have a great comic book creator as well. We've got Walter Simonson, who did an amazing run on Thor and did work on X Factor, Orion as well for DC Comics. Lots of amazing quality work. You can find that out there. The Thor films wouldn't be what they are without Walter Simonson, and Thor comics throughout since his work in the 80s wouldn't be what they were. He created Beta Ray Bill, who's one of my favorite comic book characters, and hopefully they're going to have him in one of the films soon, maybe played by Christian Bale, who knows. But we are going to look at Dark Horse's RoboCop versus Terminator. So it's the combination of two massive franchises, very popular franchises from the 80s into the 90s and further. Less than stellar results in some of the sequels. But this, for me, is the best sequel that both of these franchises ever had. Combines the two elements, everything about Terminator, everything about RoboCop that you would want to see and that you want to hear, and it kind of seamlessly combines them without much effort, really. It seems effortless, but obviously there's a lot of work that goes into it. It's an amazing read, and it looks amazing. Walter Simonson is on point with all the things he uses, all the movie references. They've got the walking hunter killers kind of spider tank things going on. The Terminators look gorgeous as well. RoboCop looks big and bulky and powerful, just like you'd want him to. And all the Terminators are kind of creepy, yet again, very powerful and, very scary. They just keep coming down. They never stop. They absolutely will not stop until you are dead. And it's a gorgeous book, and we get loads of different weird. We get a child Terminator, which is really creepy, and a dog Terminator that turns into this octopus squid, bladed thing. And there's a dog Terminator at the end, but I won't spoil that. But it is absolutely a fantastic read. Definitely go out and order this. Get it physically if you can. It is available on Comixology as well if you want to get it there. But it's an absolute blast. The basic premise is that somebody in the future, a resistance fighter in the future called Flo or Florence, she's discovered that Alex Murphy, RoboCop, the melding of man and machine, the programming and everything is the kind of the brainchild, the beginnings, the spark for Skynet's, when Skynet becomes self-aware. That started, the tiny seed of that started with Alex Murphy and him becoming partly human. That kind of gave almost a soul to the machine, if you will, and helped kind of spearhead and launch the idea idea of Skynet and self-aware AI and things, which we hadn't really seen in RoboCop for the most part in the films and stuff. But yeah, and it's just that crumb of an idea it's kind of it's like the diamond in the rough. It's kind of just genius because the Flo travels back in time to, like, much like Kyle Reese and various other characters in the Terminator franchise, to kill Alex Murphy, to kill RoboCop. So she wanted to go back early and kill him while he was still human, but she couldn't. Kind of, it goes a bit haywire. And it never. I think the time travel in Terminator is always a bit wobbly, isn't it? And they even said that in the books. It doesn't work as well as we'd like it to. Even the machines say that in the machines monologue. It's like it's a bit tricky, but we use it anyway. These cold calculating machines. It's still a bit like don't know if this will work, but yeah, it's a last chance. Give it a go. It's last stab at the dark. But yes, she travels back and she has to kill Alex Murphy. It's quite funny. Like, again, like there's a lot of Frank Miller injects a lot of humor into the book. Just, it is very dark. I will say this is very disturbing. Like, there's a moment in the book where there's a lot of time travel that goes in. So there's various different kind of. That's probably the most confusing part of the book, is that they keep jumping in time. Every time the Terminators are defeated, they jump back in time to stop themselves being defeated. And there's a timeline where they succeed. They stop everything. They're hunting down. They're literally hunting down the last child of Earth, and they shoot the child in the face. Quite blatantly, and that's it. And they kind of hold up the child's corpse and say, we did it. And then they go into outer space in this kind of like Death's Head styled kind of pirate spaceship, which is amazing. Like, amazing visuals in this book, just seeing the Terminators and seeing RoboCop in this form, in this matchup. But again, everything you want. Alex Murphy is dealing with not being human as he does, and the life he had, and him losing his humanity, and it's brought even further, like, causes him more distress when he learns that he is the instrumental part of the wiping out of the human race. He's already afraid of losing his human side and everything that makes him human. He's already lost most of his body, and this is just, it's heartbreaking to him. And he at one point destroys himself, because he was like, I absolutely don't want this future to happen. Terminator's time travel to stop that from happening. It's a heartbreaking story. There's a lot of, he thinks about his wife a lot. He thinks about all the women in his life, all the supportive, loving and badass women, including Flo, the resistance fighter in his life. And he feels like he's lost something. Does he feel anymore? What does he feel, and how does he feel, and what's right? And he's concerned that he will become, because he's destined to become the Terminator in a way. But it's a great, I'm just gushing really, because it's just so good a story. It's just fantastic, and it jumps around quite a bit, and the humour's brilliant. You've got Ed 209 in there, and Dr. Lazarus, for all you RoboCop aficionados, if you know who that is. They all make these appearances. Frank Miller even wrote RoboCop 2 and 3. For the most part, obviously, they were done a little differently than he had planned. However, they were remade in comic book form by Stephen Grant, who does the introduction for this particular graphic novel, and they're really good as well. I would check those out. They're really fun. I think it's just RoboCop by Frank Miller, I think it's called. It's, again, on Comixology. Just type in RoboCop, it's there. You'll find it. But also really, really fun, really good stuff if you're a RoboCop fan. And there's a lot of Terminator books out there as well. Going back to RoboCop versus Terminator. So we've got Flo coming back, and she appears in the middle of Detroit. All of a sudden, she's in front of a guy. She appears in front of a guy's car, and it knocks his back out, and he's complaining. She's some drug-addled, naked girl jumping in front, and then he just, she grabs him, pulls his gun, but everybody else in Detroit just all of a sudden is like, oh, right, there's a fight, let me pull my gun out. Obviously, Frank Miller's probably making a case about, guns in America or something. Everyone has one, and she's like, yeah, don't you dare try and shoot me. And everyone's like, okay, she is crazy. I'm going to put my gun away. There's a lot of silly kind of stupid stuff. And it shows you like it's almost stereotypical of how bad Detroit is in regards to like crime and stuff. Like that she's like Flo gets arrested and put in jail and someone tries to assault her in prison. And like everyone's like, oh, stay away from her, stay away from her. You're like, yeah. And there's a lot of fun with Ed 209 who's put in all these places. And obviously it's a very simple, Ed 209 is a very simple robot, but like obviously very powerful. And there's so many situations where Ed 209 is like, you know, put in a very kind of pedestrian like law enforcement role, like, you know, like observing traffic. Like there's a bit where Ed 209 is like, you weren't observing the speed limits, which he causes this massive, devastating pileup of cars, and you know could probably kills several people in that. And he's like, no, you must observe the laws and rules of the road, or I'm going to gun you down with my massive machine guns. They're so, you know, they're the massive comic relief in this, and that's exactly what I kind of want my Ed 209 to be a little bit. I kind of want him to kind of be quite funny and quite, you know, even I think he falls over at one point as well, obviously, because she's rolling. The resistance fighter Flo is rolling in and out underneath the Ed 209. He just eventually just falls over or shoots his own legs or something like that. It's really funny. Lots of comedy there, and you know, just a lot of it's well balanced. It's kind of the black humor is well balanced with the kind of the darkness of the whole series and the whole idea. There's scenes of, you know, human survivors, you know, stinging to their child before like the big extinction, before the annihilation line comes or whatever you call it. It's all kind of rolling out. Probably the most, I mean, you get a really cool fight. The first bit of time travel, apart from the time travel Flo again back, the first Terminator time travel, you had them, is RoboCop's like, yeah, I won't do this, I won't become this, or oh, no, she kills him. That's it. Flo successfully kills him. Skynet sends the Terminators back to erase that death because they're slowly going, you know, the time waves changing or whatever you call it, and they're just before it hits them, the change in the time. I think they call it a time matrix in this. I think that certain matrices of time, I think, which is basically just the timeline anyway. They send 3 Terminators back, and then they have this massive brawl. And there's loads of gorgeous splash pages in this. Like, if you just take one of the splash pages in this, I would happily hang that art on the wall for everyone to see, because it's just gorgeous. There's one where RoboCop's missing an arm after a massive battle with the Terminators in present day, and he's got he's holding up one of the skulls of the Terminators, like rah, very badass, very metal. It's really, really cool, and it's interesting to see how it plays out, and how, because there's a portion where Flo goes to kill him, but he's talking to her and explains everything, and she can't do it because she's sworn to never kill another human in the Terminator timeline. You know, she's sworn to be totally at war with the machines given the situation. But she realizes that he's still kind of more human than any Terminator could ever be. So she's very conflicted about what she's doing. Even though he's effectively more machine than man, he still has the soul of a man. Again, just great stuff. Just really, really good. I honestly think this is one of like Frank Miller's last great works. I think there's a few other things he's done, like 300 was pretty good and a few other things, but I think for the most part this was his last amazing bit of work before he got a bit weird and his politics, you know, get a bit questionable. Definitely. I won't go into it now because that's a whole other subject and podcast entirely, which I don't think I'll ever do. Yeah, I think this is genuinely just fantastic, and I think if Frank Miller drew it, you know, it probably would have a very different feel, a very different style. But Walter Simonson seems to, he has, I think he has something about his detail. It is somewhat cartoony, the way he draws. Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to describe his style myself. I wouldn't know even where to begin in describing the art. But there's a cartoony, sharp edged element to it. But like, I've seen him draw things like, you know, I've seen him draw X Factor. I've seen him draw, you know, Thor. I honestly think he can draw anything. You know, he's done, you know, Orion. He's done all this other stuff. He's a fantastic artist, no doubt. Not a question in my mind that he is not brilliant in any form. I think when I was younger, I didn't really like his art style, but it has really grown on me in the last few years. I just love it. Like, just the way I think both characters in this are drawn, probably the best I've ever seen them drawn for the most part. I don't think you'll get better renderings in some respects of RoboCop or Terminator, for that example. Just Google the artwork. If you're not going to read the book, which I highly recommend, just check out the artwork. You can see how just gorgeous it is. It is beautiful. But I love this. The storyline again. It's just brilliant. It's just all types of good. You know, it doesn't like a lot of these kind of verses or crossovers things kind of have it in a kind of sort of a tie. They kind of end in a tie because they don't want any one character to look more powerful than the other, or you know there are examples where that doesn't happen, but in this there is quite clearly a winner, you know, for the most part. You know, this could easily cap off the whole Terminator and RoboCop franchise for me. Like, you know, guys, if you think of an idea, I mean, Disney own Terminator now, don't they? So I doubt we're going to see this anytime soon. But if there was a way to kind of reinvigorate the franchise in any form, I would do this. I would do all of this. Like, use this as your basis. I think a lot of movies could take a lot from comic books. Like, just look at these comic books that are based. I remember the person who was the producer on Star Wars, like, there's not that much material for Star Wars. Obviously, with comics, they're like 70, 60 years old. I'm like, well, there's a lot of Star Wars comics. There's a lot of extended universe novels and video games and stuff you can draw from. So maybe have a look at that if you're gonna, you know. But I just thought it was a very stupid comment to make. Somebody who didn't clearly know the amount of stuff that Star Wars has created or influenced and what have you. One of the coolest bits for me is basically they are successful. They get RoboCop and they basically add him to, I think, Skynet's programming, I guess, end his, you know, destroy his body, get his brain, get everything about his program, his brain, and kind of digitize it and send it into Skynet's programming. That's the best way I can describe it. And he kind of, what he does is it basically is a repository for his soul. This is this program, this one final program. It is him. It is his memories. It's who he is, and it basically he is all through all these kind of decades. He's dodging Skynet's trying to delete him or absorb him or get rid of this program. He's multiplying this program as faster than they can delete it, and he's hiding and all these different, you know, in the digital world, you know, hiding with all these, you know, subsystems or whatever you want to call it. I don't know the technical jargon, but basically is, you know, digital soul is, you know, he's hiding it from Skynet, and then eventually there's an opening in the security kind of, there's a faulty security code or something in a Terminator factory. So during the kind of, I think it's 2029, I think that's the when the war has, you know, all this kind of stuff happens. He basically builds himself a new body with you know, a bit of flesh, grabs a bit of that kind of from the flesh vat, gets the Terminator pieces, molds himself new handguns, that awesome handgun that he always had. I bloody loved that thing. Amazing. I remember there was when I was younger, there was a BB gun of the RoboCop handgun, and I was like, why didn't I just buy that? It was amazing. But anyway, regrets. But yeah, and he uses the Terminator. He's got Terminator arms. He's still got the helmet and the, you know, the skin on the face and the lower jaw and stuff. But then he's got, like, it's very 90s this bit because he's got about 20 missiles on his back. Very, very War Machine, actually. Very kind of War Machine-esque. And he's got one arm that just basically just shoots missiles as well. But and he's got these kind of rocket boots that it's not got the kind of jetpack from RoboCop 3, but he just had these kind of like rocket booster things on the side of his legs, which kind of give him flight. And it is, you know, crazy, it's stupid, it's very 90s, it's very metal, it's very badass. I personally love it. It's very over the top. It's very Frank Miller as well. It's what I kind of expect, but it's a lot of fun. And he goes out and he He's shooting all the Terminators, saves Flo before she makes that initial time jump back to where he was killed, or back in the present day, which is the past now. Time travel's confusing. I know I'm confused. It's easier if you read it. So yeah, he saves her, and he leads a resistance against these kind of spider tanks and everything else going on. It's just fantastic. It's great. It's the height of kind of sci-fi, wish fulfillment. It's everything you want out of this franchise, and it's amazing. It's fun, brilliant. Just go out and read it. Honestly, it's just so good. And he gets his body destroyed, so he has to kind of rebuild it. Goes back to the factory, and Flo's like, well, if you want to rebuild, like, if you're rebuilding yourself, why not just build an army of you? And he's like, oh yeah, why didn't I think of that? And then he starts realizing that he's becoming more and more, over this time of spending, his digital soul has been in the machine for so long that he's kind of losing. He's not even human anymore. It's just a program, a memory, a recording, digitized. He says he's not really even human. I'm starting to lose my ingenuity, my imagination. I'm becoming more and more machine-like again. Like, that's his main worry constantly, that he's just becoming, a robot, effectively. And that's his main concern in this. And obviously the concern is that when he becomes that robot, it's going to destroy the world. But yeah, rebuilds himself, builds this whole army of RoboCop, Robo-Terminators. I believe they named him EndoCop. I believe the version that we see in the final kind of comics, the final few issues of this series. Brilliant. And in fact, this comic is so influential in the 90s. It was such a big, huge thing. They actually made a video game called RoboCop V.S. Terminator, which probably some of you played. I don't think I ever got to play it in the end, but it just sounded amazing. I was like, what a great idea. I just thought it was a video game initially, but that was springboarded by this comic book. And then also Nika, a few years ago, I think, brought out 2 specific RoboCop Terminator figures. So they do RoboCop Terminator figures anyway, so they decided to do the combo, so the comic version, which is, they've got these boxes covered in the Walter Simonson art, which is, again, gorgeous, beautiful. And you've got the RoboCop, where it's just he's kind of just a Terminator, one of the kind of RoboCop soldiers, Terminator soldiers, and that comes with like a Terminator dog. And then you've got the one with all the missiles and stuff, the missile arm and everything. So you've got a lot to kind of. I mean, it was a huge deal. It was a big deal, and I can see why. It works so well, and I think most crossovers, or like intercompany crossovers, or character crossovers from different franchises could only dream to be as good as this. Like, there's a few ones I enjoy, but I think this is like the ultimate one. Like, this is how you do it. There's some great different one. Like IDW does a lot of kind of inter-crossovers. So speaking of which, they're doing a Transformers and Terminator crossover, which I am very much looking forward to, as I like both of the comics, like both franchises. It makes absolute sense to me in a weird way. Why the fuck not? That's my, with any of these crossovers, I go, yeah, why the fuck not? I'm more than happy to see these characters cross over and see what kind of stories can be told, because it just gives us more ideas, more interesting places it can go. It's fantastic. This is a comic book I highly recommend. It's quite interesting to hear like Skynet's kind of inner monologue as well, which is quite interesting. You get to hear his kind of how he describes the sweaty spawning of humans, and how disgusting they are, and how they just potentially just keep breeding just to survive, even though it's inevitable that they'll be extinguished. It doesn't really understand, doesn't get what it is, doesn't get the human race on any level, and that's quite kind of fascinating to see. That kind of the inner monologue for a machine, I always think it's really interesting. Some like this is quite a relatively quite human sort of dialogue. It's not very technical. It's not like tech speak. It's just basically an inner monologue for a machine and the way they feel about humans and their destiny and what they're going to do. It's a weird and wacky, fun. It's just the best possible thing you could read about any franchise. If you're going to read a RoboCop or Terminator comic, go here first, I'd say. And then if you're interested in reading more, then you can sort of branch out and see, try different things out. Maybe you can try the other Frank Miller stuff, or you can try. I don't think there's as many RoboCop comics out there. I think there is. Maybe you can get the original issues and stuff. I know there's not as many on Comixology, but there is a fair few Terminator ones as well. So I checked that out. I think Burning Earth's really good. That was a cool one by Alex Ross that's available. That was one of his first works in comics. It's a fun, just one-off. It's kind of a storyline. It was supposed to be a sequel to the original Terminator film, so obviously it doesn't have any of the T2 bits and pieces, but it's still good. It still has the elements you would want. I love this, and there's a lot to love about it. I don't know what else I can really say about it other than it's absolutely fantastic. Again, I don't want to spoil too much for you. Forget the sequels after T2. Forget the sequels after RoboCop 2. Just go here. Just look. This is the sequel you want to read. This is the movie sequel we all should have had by, crossover sequel. It would have just been fantastic. Obviously, we can't really get that now because all the actors are a bit too old or various other things. But, if we could see this one day, that would be incredible. But I sincerely doubt it. But that's why we have comic books. That's why we have these kind of licensing deals. We get to kind of get a little sense of what we could have, what could have been. And it's fantastic. And again, not all the Terminators look like Arnie, which I kind of think, yeah, we love Arnie and he's a very good Terminator and stuff, but I like to see other variations. If they all just look like Arnie, what's the point? I think I've not seen Dark Fate, so I don't know what that is like or what that says about the franchise. I've heard some things. I've read some reviews and things, but it is what it is. But I think I'm gonna stop now because I can't say anything else. I think it's a fantastic book. I'm just gushing. And before anybody says that, the Terminators aren't robots or RoboCop is not a robot, Terminators were around before they started putting skin and organs in them. Even if they do put organs in them, they were a thing. That's when they created the Infiltrator unit, which is like Arnie's unit. Before that, they were all metal all of the time. Skynet is an AI. There was no human elements to it apart from maybe RoboCop's soul as it posits in this, but that is it. But yeah, it's got a really fun ending as well, very fun and cheesy ending, but I love it. I think it's great. It's quite funny as well. Yeah, it's fantastic. Just go out and check it out. Gushed about it far too much. It is what I consider one of the best crossovers in comics, best sequels to either of these franchises. Go out and read it. It's fantastic. Okay, guys. Well, that's it. You guys know where to find me by now. You know the deal. You know the dealio. So go out and find me at Secret Balls. That's at Secret Balls on Facebook. It's Twitter. It's at Dan_Balls. Instagram, it's SpiderDan Secret Balls, all one word. And the podcast is available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, and many, many more. And if you'd like to donate towards the podcast, you can buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/SpiderDan and the Secret Balls. And if you do interact with us, don't forget to use the hashtag #PrepareForPrattle. And I'm out. See you later, guys. See you in the future.